If you want to do some education, upsloping channels like this eventually break to the downside. You don't know when, but eventually I would anticipate that this goes even lower. That makes me very interested in something like the TLT, which again tends to go up when yields are falling. In fact, that's something that I do. I make a lot less than I did at the beginning, but there's no perfect solution. There's no magic where all of a sudden you just are winning every trade. There's still trades that go wrong. The question is, how do you react? Do you start with small positions so when it doesn't go according to plan, you can maneuver, or do you go all in like most smaller investors do, which is the wrong thing to do, and then you basically get caught with your pants down, there's nothing you can do, right? So you have to look at it like that. Either way, I like to remind myself, and I work on my discipline, that regardless of earnings or what's coming up, I look at the chart. The chart is the true arbiter of truth, or as close as we can get as traders. And if you look at this chart, and I went over this, how many days did we talk about this chart of liking it down right into this long-term trend line from 2020, and what ends up happening? It ends up popping. Now, is there still a little additional risk because of earnings? Yes, because if it doesn't work out, which again is probability, so the probability here was probably an 80% chance that it would bounce, right? That's what I would give this if I'm guesstimating. Now, there's still a 20% chance it goes awry. Now, the problem with earnings, and I mentioned this yesterday, is that if it goes awry on earnings, it can be a massive loss because stocks tend to move a lot on earnings. So you just have to take that into account. If you're ever going to play earnings and buy or short into earnings, you just have to be very aware that if it doesn't go according to what the chart is signaling, which does happen, the loss can be significant, and that's where you really lighten up the amount of shares that you have exposure to on these type of situations. Okay, either way, great bets here, but was dictating at least motion because of sentiment. And you have to, as a trader, if you want to be one of the best investors and traders in the world, you have to be able to separate yourself from the sheep or the crowd. And listen, it's normal for us to fall in that category because we're human. We get swayed by what everyone else is saying. But you also, as a trader, have to step above that. You have to start recognizing when everyone else is bearish on something, when it's gotten to be too extended, and you have to ask yourself, thinking logically, is there value in this name? And if you have value and the technicals are telling you that, then that's the time to maybe step up and go long. Example would be Tesla, right? Think about it, just this last weekend they cut prices again. Oh my gosh, even before that, the negativity on Tesla was insane. So what does it do? It lowers the bar for earnings. To be honest, Tesla's earnings were horrendous. They were horrendous. Now, as I said, and I said this in trading and close yesterday with Tony, is that remember the one positive thing going into earnings about Elon Musk is that he has an ego, and he hates his stock being down. He hates the short sellers making money, and he hates the fact that there's been so much negative press on Tesla. So he was going to come out blasting, right? And he was going to come out with say the most positive things he could do, and it worked. So their earnings were bad, but he talked about new models, cheap models of EVs, and all of a sudden the market gets excited and the stock goes up because it wasn't expecting anything positive. With Boeing, much the same, right? Stock's not up a ton today; it's up $5 or $6, but the same sort of thing. The stock has collapsed. Stock market's still pretty much at all-time highs, or just a little bit off. Negativity is unbelievable. It makes sense you're going to get a bounce just based on sentiment being too bearish alone, right? So the Boeing, like basically Boeing had to come out and just be like, hey guys, our planes are not falling out of the sky. Like that's basically what they had to say just to kind of keep the stock price stationary. And they just said a little bit more. Like, okay, yeah, we're hanging in there, whatever, and the stock will go up. And that's again the sentiment difference. Understanding sentiment is really, really important when it comes down to it. Okay, a couple other things. Another stock that was in the major support, Biogen, I looked for a pullback. So this is what I consider a double tap. Double taps are actually very bearish when it's in an upsloping channel at the upper line. Now, when it's at the bottom of the channel, it's very bullish. So what do I mean by that? Well, here was a single tap and we went to the high end. Single tap, we went up, then we did a double tap, right? Double tap here to here, and then what happens? We go to the high end. Now notice how this is, by the way, this is getting into some nitty-gritty inside stuff, all right? This is like going beyond what I normally teach in here. But look at the trend line, right? So look at how the midpoint, see this? I don't know if you guys can see the dotted line of the middle of this channel, which is a parallel as well, right? Look at how the bounce, the double tap, went to this point, then it retraced, and then it got its mojo and really had a run, okay? So watch this now, let's clear off these lines. So now, let's look for a double tap. So number one, here's our first hit, and then look at the low. The low, we had a flush down right to the midpoint, just like over here, and then we pushed up. There's your double tap. My guess is, guys, and again, this is going counter trend. And by the way, you'll see me, like, I literally turned on CNBC yesterday, Bloomberg, everyone's like, yields are going higher, it's all going higher. I'm like, yeah, the news makes you think that, and then I always say, shut off that part of my brain that just goes by the narrative that's being spun, and look at the chart. And can the chart be wrong? Yeah, 3 out of 10 times it could be, in general, but I'm gonna go with the probability side every time, because that's what's gonna keep me as a more sane, logical trader and have a better winning percentage. So the idea is, here's your double tap, right? Double tap back to the midpoint, right up there, and there's your move. Double taps are something that I've learned more and more about, and they are significant. And again, usually that's where you get your bigger run. Greatest example of this here, midpoint double tap, and then your bigger move to the upside. Okay, so again, bullish to me. Today the dollar's up a little bit on the day, not much, but again, it's more of the key here. And by the way, you can even make a case for a double tap here, right here, then here, bounce, and then here. Doesn't have the same midpoint line, so I don't look at this the same way, but either way, then you got your big move up, and then what type of pattern formation is that? I'm still in the camp that we are headed up to this upper range here. All right, so again, I still have this target of 107.